Alright guys, what's up? Welcome back to another video review. Today we are covering Invisible Woman's new uniform, and I feel like I'm reviewing the old one because it's pretty much exactly the same. The only difference, which they also claimed on paper, was that the 6th skill had more damage. But I actually don't think that this is the case either. I think that they just added more hits, because the animation and the damage is pretty much exactly the same as well. So here, I'm getting the best out of what I'm able to get out of her. And I was swapping in and out between Authority and Regen and Greed. So her damage was pretty good. If I could trap the opponent, or if I had the help of my Sentry helping trap the opponent and her continuing to trap, because unfortunately Sue isn't a debuff master, which means that over time her debuffs and her timers for those debuffs run out, and then the AI has the chance to attack as usual. However, I think she still retains her placement within somewhere of a top 20 range for PvP. I think she's still relatively worth a tier 4 if you have Franklin and you have his artifact to 6-star, giving her 3 seconds of immortality. That makes her pretty good. However, she's missing a key statistic, which is ignore iframe in her base kit, because her only ignore iframe is on her 6th skill and she rarely gets it off anyway. So she can only get it off in this area of the game, which is manual timeline, and I have to charge it up. But there's also another problem, is that I have to combine the 4th skill, which sometimes I'm not able to do because of dead buttons. So here, I wasn't able to fully kill Null because she wasn't a debuff master. So she needs to be a debuff master at least. In my opinion, her 6th skill needs its own penetration at a very high rate, because that's where all of her value is. There is no harm in giving penetration in 2 different skills, you know. What I think is going to happen is that she's going to get reworked later to coincide with the movie, and she's going to get fancier skills, just like what happened with Avengers Endgame way back when, where everyone hated the uniforms, and then 6 weeks to 2 months later they rework it and the uniforms are great and the damage is good and the animations are amazing. So everybody was good with those reworks. I already think that there's a specific reason why they made these uniforms pretty much exactly the same. Maybe Reed's is a little bit different and does a little bit more damage, maybe is a little bit more tanky, but at least with Sue, I don't see much of a difference. Human Torch, I heard, was okay, and the Thing was terrible. So I felt like this was kind of the only uniform that was more or less necessary to review, because a lot of people still don't know where Sue's value actually is, and it's definitely in the 6th skill. But it's also in her 3rd skill's charm. You're going to see later in these fights, when I take her in the Otherworld battle and when I take her into Team Battle Arena, that her 3rd skill, particularly against certain combats, is going to lock them into a charm before they actually activate debuff removal, because she's one of the only toons that's able to do that. And it's going to actually wipe out the opponent clean almost with 100% consistency with a certain team up. Now, as you could see, I put Regen on Sue, and it was a tactical maneuver, and you could use that tactical maneuver in the auto crowd control modes like Otherworld Battle and AC and Team Battle Arena. It's going to be useful, especially if the CTP is at Brilliant, and it gives a fair use of the CTP, which is generally otherwise considered fodder for the most part. So As you can see, I can kill all of the meta sometimes, even if my Sue is level 80. The problem is that she's not a good standalone. She's a good support DPS, and she's a good support utility, like with Liberation or with Insight. But as a standalone, I'm not going to be killing meta solo. I'm going to be kind of following up with DPS or with an Awakened skill that does a lot of damage. So here right now, I'm also testing the old uniform as well, just to kind of show you that it's more or less the same in terms of both DPS and hits and animation as well. So I'm also going to showcase Team Battle Arena's comparison with the new and the old uniform as I was fighting different opponents as well. As you can see, I also have to deal with her here because that's the only way that she's going to charge her 6 skill properly. Like so. But that value is very, very niche, so I don't expect people to use it at all. This is where she's going to be used the most because obviously she has the 12 seconds of debuff removal that she gives to all allies, so she can be used even while she's debuffed. You put her in a corner so she activates her invisible and she could get people in her 3rd skill charm like I did there. And she was debuffed there, but I was showcasing her fighting debuff tunes so you guys could better see how she actually operates. Put her in a corner. You can put her pretty much anywhere on the map, and she could maybe trap an opponent. If she doesn't trap the opponent, she'll go invisible, buy you a little bit of time, but unfortunately she'll die rather quickly. And I had some better moments with her debuffed last week compared to what I had with her today, but I had swapped her to a Liberation because I don't see any value in using her with a Mighty Regeneration, as I just think it's way too inconsistent, especially since she's a level 80 and she's not a tier 4. But I'm showcasing her all over the map. I'm showing you guys where she could be useful. You know, in this kind of case, she died very quickly, but the opposition's Sue survived almost the whole fight. So you guys could see her performance there, knocking me straight out of the Challenger League. I was pretty surprised. You know, I fought another one, and she did exactly what I told you there. Comes from a corner, traps in charm, but then dies in one shot because if the invisible doesn't pop off, she's pretty weak and she dies. If she doesn't have Franklin, she dies. So these are things that you want to pay attention to with the new uniform for right now, because it's not meta breaking by any means, and you would probably want to save your crystals. What's sad is that if she got the rework that she was supposed to get with her 4th skill having ignore iframe, she could probably be somewhere in the top 12 to 15 meta because of this. Because she won't be dying randomly and in one hit like she's doing in some of these fights. So I think that she desperately needs this rework. Took her into some AC, kind of the same thing. She was either amazing or she was terrible. Here, she traps the opponents for like 4 or 5 seconds, so my Adam was just completely open to kill them without even dying. But of course, Sue dies in the process because she's too fragile and she relies too much on her invisibility. I put a team of Reed, Sue, and Franklin together to try to see if they could beat a basic meta like Adam, and they struggled pretty bad still. In AC, it's very 50-50. Like, you have to know which opponent to fight. Sue's value is mostly against Logan's. I tried to get some clips from a legendary player, Simac. Shout out to him. You know, he tried to get this team to work against Silver Surfer and Carnage, and unfortunately, they couldn't even get past their first life. But then he'll do something like this, and he'll make a zombie team, and he'll totally dominate the same team as well. So, if anything, these characters are worth more in PvP right now than the Fantastic Four, who are brand new. And that's kind of sad, you know, but I'm here to give you facts. I'm not here to sell you a character. I'm here to tell you a solid review that's honest, you know. And while Sue has good utility, she's not meant to take on like meta. She's meant more of a support, or as like a DPS against combats like Logan. So as you're gonna see here, she could take on Logan without dying all the time, especially if she's with Adam. She can take on a few blasts like magic as well, which was why I was trying to test her in AC against certain blasts. And you can see here she's doing pretty well. And these are Vibranium teams that are kind of in the middle of the park right now. So they're not to be underestimated. However, you know, you're not going to get a lot out of fighting top meta like Sentry and Null. However, you can put Sue with Null and or Sentry if you choose to put them with another meta so that other meta could get debuff removal. So for example, I put her with Hulk and Null or Sentry, and or I can use like this team, like I can use it with Spider-Man as well. And that third skill will still come off and do residual damage. And I'm going to showcase a lot of different team combos with TBA like I'm showing here. And Sue's support utility kind of saves characters like Spider-Man. So here, for example, I'm using Sentry, Hulk, and Sue against a Surfer and a Carnage team. And they held off for enough time for Sentry to get the win. I think this is a very good tactic, and I would honestly think that people could try to use this tactic if their support characters are not enough. So, for example, my Agent Venom is not enough for my Null to take on certain characters, like a really hefty Conquest Adam or a Wolverine. So, by pairing him with Hulk, I could tank more, direct the damage elsewhere, and because of Sue's debuff removal to all allies, it gives all of my team extra defense and also gives them ability to use skills properly instead of getting stun locked. Here I compared the new uniform and the old uniform by putting them into a fight. Obviously I lose. Her tier 4 beats my tier 3 any day, regardless of the uniform. So this has been the Invisible Woman review, guys. I hope that she gets reworked to suit her movie. I hope that you guys got all the tactics necessary for you to succeed in TBA. If you have any questions, hit me up in the comments. I'll see you guys in the next one.